Today our goal is to solve two-step equations. And two-step equations are simply equations that have two operations in them. So for this first example, I have multiplication and addition. For this second one, I have division and subtraction. So how do we solve two-step equations? Write this down on your paper, and then I'm going to tell you how. If I knew what x was, I would multiply first and then add the 1. But since I don't know what x is, I want to do PEMDAS backwards. And when I do it backwards, I also want to do opposite operations. And you may remember this from last year. I want to get rid of addition and subtraction first. And then I want to get rid of multiplication and division last. I always save what's with the variable for last. So my first example, I want to get rid of the plus 1 first. And remember, plus 1 is the same thing as a positive 1. So what is the opposite of a plus 1 or a positive 1? It's a minus 1. So I'm going to take minus 1 or negative 1 from both sides. These two cancel out. Oh, let me see if I can get that little. There it is. Positive 1, negative 1 cancel out. I'm left with a negative 9x and a negative 80 and a negative 1 make a negative 81. Or if you need to stick it in your calculator, negative 80 minus 1. But really, we should be really good with our integers now, and we know they are the same, so we add them together. Now I want to get x, so next thing I want to do is get rid of multiplication and division. I have multiplication. So I want to do the opposite, and I want to divide both sides by negative 9. And, oops, sorry guys. These two 9s cancel out because a negative 9 divided by a negative 9 is a positive 1. And a negative 81 divided by a negative 9 is a positive 9. So x equals positive 9. Now I want you to go back and check that answer. After you did all that work, I want to make sure you got it right. So the way we check it is we rewrite the original equation, negative 9x plus 1 equals negative 80. I plug back in my value for x, which is 9. So negative 9 times 9 plus 1 should equal negative 80 if I didn't make any mistakes. And we know me, I do make mistakes, guys, so watch me. PEMDAS, this time I'm doing PEMDAS forward, so I'm going to do negative 9 times 9, which is negative 81, plus 1. Since these two are different, I really want to subtract them. I have more negatives, and I have 80 more negatives. So negative 80 equals negative 80, and I can check off, then I'm right. And you don't have to ask me, am I right or am I wrong? Because you just checked it. And yes, I want you to check. That mean Mrs. Caldwell. So here's our second problem. Write it down. If you need to, pause up the video. Remember up top, we're doing PEMDAS backwards, so I want to get rid of addition and subtraction. There's a minus 10, which is the same thing as a negative 10. And what gets rid of a negative 10? You got it. Positive 10. So I want to do a positive 10 to both sides, or add 10 to both sides. Negative 10 and positive 10 cancel out. So on this side, I'm left with n divided by 2. And on this side, negative 6, positive 10 gives me positive 4. Now the next thing I want to get rid of is the division. So over here, n is being divided by 2. So I want to do the opposite. And the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. And if you notice, I wrote it like a fraction. Because this one is written like a fraction. N divided by 2. So I want the 2 on top. And remember, another way to write 2 is 2 over 1. And these two 2's, 2 and a 2, cancel each other out. Because if I slide this 2 over to here, 2 on top of 2 is a 1. So they cancel out and I'm left with n. And on this side, I'm just going to multiply by a regular 2 because it doesn't look like a fraction. And 4 times 2 is 8. So I get n equals 8. And remember, I want you to check it. Plug that 8 back into the original equation. We write down the original equation, And where n is, since we said n equals 8, I plug an 8 in for n. 8 divided by 2 minus 10 should equal negative 6 if we did all of our work right. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. So since a negative 6 equals negative 6, this one is correct also. So I'm going to give myself a little check mark. It's right. All right, I got 2 more problems for you to work through. Remember, if you're starting to get them, you can kind of write them down, solve them yourself, and then come back and check with me to see how you did. So I want to get rid of addition. This positive 10 is what I want to get rid of, not the multiplication. So the opposite of a positive 10, not negative, because this negative right here, this minus, goes with the 6v. So I want to get rid of the 10. So I take away 10 or I do a negative 10. These two 10s cancel out, and I'm left with negative 6v equals negative 114. And now I want to get rid of my multiplication by doing the opposite. And the opposite of multiplying by a negative 6 is dividing by a negative 6. And I divide both sides by that negative 6. Oops. These two 6's cancel out. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 is a positive 1, so I'm left with v. Negative 114 divided by negative 6, stick it in your calculator if you need to, and you get v equals 19. I want to go back and check my answer, rewrite your original equation, plug in 19 where the v is, multiply first. Now we're following PEMDAS the correct way. I get 10 minus 114. If you need to, stick it in your calculator. If not, you know negative 104 equals negative 104. Always check yourself. Don't assume you're right when you get down to this last step and just write negative 104 equals negative 104. You may have made a mistake. I believe this is the last one we're going to do together, and then you're going to do some on your own. So I want to get rid of the addition and subtraction first. Keep division for last. Just like up top, this minus goes with the p divided by 4. So I want to get rid of this positive 8, and what gets rid of a positive 8? But a negative 8. And that's the same thing as minus 8. So negative 8 to both sides, because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. These two cancel out, and I'm left with negative p divided by 4. 5 minus 8 is negative 3. Now this negative sign can go either with the p or with the 4. And since I really want positive p as my answer, I'm going to move this negative 4, or this negative, down here. I'm going to bring it down here and put it in front of the 4. And I'm going to get rid of it up here. I'm just simply going to move it down. So now it comes down here with the negative 4. And what's the opposite of dividing by a negative 4? You guessed it, multiplying by a negative 4. But since it looks like a fraction, I set mine up like a fraction. You don't have to. Remember that this one would be on the bottom, because that's how we write a whole number. A negative 4, if I slide it over here to this side, which I can't do right now, but if I could, slide him over here, negative 4 divided by negative 4. Sorry guys, sometimes these things aren't showing up. They cancel out, and I'm left with p. And if I multiply this side by negative 4, I have to multiply the other side by negative 4, because I'm keeping it balanced and equal. And I get p equals negative 3 times negative 4 is a positive 12. Remember, check that answer. Plug it back in. 8 minus p divided by 4 equals 5. Plug in that 12 where p is. Do my division first. Oh, it looks like I might have skipped some steps, guys. No, I didn't. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 minus 3 is 5. 5 equals 5. So I have checked it, and I am correct. Now I would like you to try these two on your own. So write them down, pause up the video, solve them on your own, and then start the video back up and check your answers. So for the first one, this is my work, and this is my check. Check yourself. This is my work, and this is my check. Now when you're multiplying, if it's a division and you're multiplying, you do not have to put this box down here. If you want to, you can put the 8 divided by 1, or you can just put the 8 up high by the 1. As long as you know that that 8 means whole 8. And because it's on top and the other 8's on bottom, they cancel out. Remember, if you have any questions, bring them to class and we'll discuss them.